Hello everybody, Andy here again. Well, this is one of those videos that you record, you turn on the camera and you start speaking and you're never absolutely sure whether it's ever going to see the light of day as a vlog, but I'm going to do it anyway. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I haven't actually put up many videos recently, and also the ones that I have put up aren't new videos. So in effect I haven't actually posted a sort you would class as a new video with new footage or whatever for a couple of weeks now. Now there are a couple of reasons for that. One of which is that I've had an awful cold. My wife's had an awful cold as well. There's so much stuff going around in Britain at the moment, sort of flu-like viruses, which is what I've had. For my wife's still suffering. I'm literally just got over it now. I'm still very, very lethargic and that. But there is another reason behind it as well. I forgot what day we are. We're Sunday now. A week ago Friday, I got a phone call whilst I was at work to say that my father had collapsed and had been taken into hospital. At first they didn't know what the problem was. They thought he might have had some sort of a stroke or a mini stroke. Now I was just getting dosed up with this particular sort of cold and everything, and there's nothing you can do. He was in hospital. I couldn't actually go to see him anyway because of what I was like, and the last thing you want to do is go into a hospital full of germs and flu-like viruses, etc. He was in there for a week. At first, as I said, we thought he'd had some sort of stroke. And my father, in case you aren't aware, I probably mentioned him before, he will be 92 in January. And up until now, he's been in very, very good health. And it's only in the last sort of year that time started to take its toll, shall we say. He's always been a pretty active man. It's all there, you know. There's no problems in that respect. He's sort of got his marbles, as we like to say. But now he's starting to slow down and realising that he needs to slow down. And this was obviously very, very worrying. And as the sort of the first few days especially went on, it appeared that he was sort of going downhill rapidly. They weren't quite sure exactly what had happened. He'd been sort of slightly ill or ill for a while with what they thought was like a lung inflammation or something like that. And obviously we started to think possibly the worst. And come the sort of middle of the week last week, he was, my mother obviously was very concerned about this. My sister was very concerned, and I was very, very frustrated, as was my wife, because I couldn't see him, and I was very wary about even sort of seeing my mother as well, or even my sister, because of the way that I was with the cold and everything that I got. So you're sort of down through that, and it was a really, really sort of a miserable sort of week. So I'm really cheering you up now as this is posted. But it's one of those sort of situations where you start to think about all of these things, and I've spoken about this before, I know, with my daughter, when my daughter was very young and she was very, very ill as well. And there was a sort of a moment in that when you start to sort of prepare yourself for the worst news that you can get. You prepare yourself for the death of your daughter at the time, and also with this, with my father as well. And I was I remember sort of vividly sitting on a train whilst I was at work. I had to have a couple of days off because of this cold, but went back to work. Possibly shouldn't have been there because my mind probably wasn't in the right place for lots of reasons. And sitting on a train thinking about this and going through all those things, and it sort of struck me. Although you think about sort of mortality and all these sort of things, it's only in sort of times like this that you sort of really sort of start maybe analysing it. But that's me anyway, and it sort of made me realise just how much like my father I really am. That you automatically think about sort of certain things, similarities in height, build, looks and that type of thing. But it was only when I started to think about it that I realised a lot of the things that I do, that I like, maybe that I'm good at or whatever, are very, very similar than what he is as well. Obviously, yes, I have characteristics of my mother, but my sister is more like my mother. I'm far more like my father. So I am sort of, the son of my father, I suppose. And it sort of brings it home to you. And then, in another way, it starts to make you realise about my sort of presence, I suppose, as a father, because obviously my father, and then I've got my own son as well, and you start to think about it in that way as well. You start to sort of analyse, maybe get a bit sort of philosophical about this, and it's one of those sort of times when you sit down and you start to sort of evaluate all of these sort of different things, and maybe how, I mean, I was thinking about obviously how I view my father and what I've got to sort of thank him for. We've always had a very, very good sort of a relationship from years. I think I can't think. Yes, there's obviously, you know, we all have those moments, don't we, within our lives where we sort of cross swords, so to speak, but never really. I must admit, and that's because that's his nature, his sort of easygoing nature, which is one of those things that I've taken on board. Lots of other things which I'm not going to go into, which are probably too sort of personal. But as I said, it makes you think about these. Now, thankfully, everything's sort of taken the right course. By the middle of the week, they realised that what had happened, he'd actually had a heart attack of some type. Obviously, quite a minor heart attack, but when you get to the age of sort of very nearly 92, when you have a heart attack, it's not minor. It sort of knocks you for six. And but at least they knew what the problem was. He was in the right place. When he collapsed, he was, you know, taken to hospital very, very quickly. People were very, very supportive, etc. Straight to the hospital. He was in the right place. He was being looked after. There were some little issues around that, but once all that was sorted, we knew what was happening. He knew what was happening. And he's now back home. He came back, and funny enough, today was the first time that I went round this afternoon. It was the first time that I've actually had the chance to see him. Quite a strange thing in some ways, because you know, in the middle of the week, you're thinking, "Am I ever going to see this person alive?" And obviously hoping that you do, and all those sort of things. And it was only afterwards, and you start to think about it because of the cold and all that sort of stuff that was sort of maybe a side issue. Maybe that's why I was as bad as I was, because I was run down because of everything else that was going on. And it was only I sort of sat down one sort of evening and sort of felt quite emotional about it, which I suppose is quite a natural thing. And even today, it was quite a strange sort of experience, I suppose. But he's on the mend. He's very tired. He's certainly, we were discussing it this afternoon, the sort of the fact that he's sort of feeling his age now, and has realised those sort of the implications of what's happened, and his limitations of what he's going to do. I did a video not long ago actually talking about Christmas and about inviting my parents round. I'll be perfectly honest, one of the reasons that we actually thought about that, although, you know, obviously we have to see parents at Christmas time and etc., we thought about that because we thought, well, you know, it's getting old, you never know where you're going to be. So it's one of those sort of situations where a family is for life. A family isn't just for Christmas, a family is for life. It's something I've said before, and I'm as guilty as anybody else really in not sort of following that through. So if there's a Christmas message from this sort of particular video, it's think about that sort of side of things. You know, you never know when these things might be taken away from you. The things that you love, the things that you treasure, the things that you cherish, you never know when they're going to be taken away. I've had a close shave, thankfully, and luckily maybe, I don't know, we've all come out of it the right way. I've come out of it a stronger person, and hopefully my father will, you know, ultimately sort of maybe slow him down a bit and stop him doing some of the things like trying to paint a ceiling in the week before he had the incident. You know, this 91-year-old man shouldn't really be trying to do decorating and painting ceilings, but that's what some of these people are like. You can't stop them. But he's fit, he's healthy in lots of other ways, as we were discussing today. It could have been a lot worse with strokes and things like that. You're never quite sure how that could affect you mentally. No problems there. So, and that's one of those things that I fear for myself and for my sort of relatives, family, or whatever. I can't think of anything worse than sort of losing the mind or whatever. I mean, if you've got everything else, you know, that's great. So anyway, I don't want to ramble on about this, and I'm going to view this before I post it, but I just wanted to say that. But one thing I wanted to talk about in some ways was some of the things that have kept me going, because the title of this particular video, sometimes you can't make it on your own. Now obviously I've not publicised what's been going on, but I've been gaining strength from all the people that are out there, all of my sort of subscribers, and the sites that I've been using, places like Twitter, and especially the musical side of things. I do want to do a video about that side of things anyway, but music has always been a big passion for me. It's something that's kept me going. It's certainly something that's kept me going over the last week when I've had those frustrations, when I haven't been able to do anything else. I haven't watched many videos, I haven't commented on many videos because I haven't felt like it really, but I have watched some videos. A couple of collaborations that I was in have come out, which are sort of giving you that boost, and it's great to see all those people out there. I just happened to put a little tweet out there on Twitter the other day. I just happened to say that I wasn't feeling that great because of my cold, never said anything else, and I've got all these great little messages, people, oh, I hope you get better, and people sort of chiming in and that, and without anybody realising, those things can really make a big difference to someone's life. It certainly helped me, so I want to thank everybody who unknowingly maybe has actually kept me going through the last week or so, and especially to all those people with the musical side of things, and you know who you are because you've been on and I've been sort of playing lots of music on the internet via Blip FM and that, and people have been sort of throwing things back, and without you realising it, you've kept me going, because one of those things that I always sort of go back to maybe is music, because music is one of those things that's been through my life. It's also something that I think I get from my father as well, so maybe that's another thing. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to put that up, so normal service will be resumed very, very shortly. But thanks for all support without you even realising it. Thanks you for helping to get me through the past week or so. And remember that thought, cherish your families. A family is for life, it's not just for Christmas. So hope you have a good Christmas. Anyway, mine's going to be a lot better than I thought it might be. So thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.